So today, I'm working on this. Stay tuned. Hi guys, so for those of you who don't know, my name is Michael and I am the woodworker for MK Designs. And yeah, Kat needed some storage in her craft room, sewing room, whatever you want to call it. And so she finally, after about a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in there, she finally decided what she wanted. She comes to me and says, all right, this is what I want. She gives me dimensions and I lay it all out and I say, okay, well, this is what it's going to cost. This is the idea. And I had a brilliant idea. I thought, since I'm going to make this, and this will be a good thing for sewers, crafters to be able to store their fabric, their crafting supplies, stuff like that, why not make it to where I can flat pack it and ship it? And then I can put it on my website and sell it. We'll see if it sells. So I'm like, okay, I know they make knockdown fasteners, and oh wait, Festool came out with one. I have a Domino 500. I can use those. So that's what I did with this. I did the Domino DF 500 connectors, and I went out and bought the kit, and then I bought some extra connectors because she needed more than what just came in the kit. And sat down, played with it, figured it out, and started putting this thing together. I decided to build it completely out of Baltic birch because of the sturdiness and the stability of the Baltic birch. Yes, it weighs a ton. That's why it has 6 wheels on it instead of just 4, because it starts to bow in the middle if you don't have support in the middle. So I put 6 wheels on it, and it actually makes it a little easier to move around also. It is a little top heavy, but that's easily taken care of. Just make it a little deeper. And yeah, I am going to have plans for this on my website. The link for that will be down in the description. I'm not going to charge very much for them, if anything at all. I'm not sure quite yet if I'm going to make them free or not, but we'll see. So anyway, yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so obviously the first thing I need to do is I need to break down the plywood. I have 4 sheets of 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood for this, and I've got a 1/2 inch sheet for the back, or 2 1/2 inch sheets actually, because it's so large. So yeah, I'm going to use my AccuCut and my AccuRip, and I'm going to get it broke down to rough size, and then as I'm working each piece, I'll take it over the table saw and break it down to get it cut to actual size. So yeah. And yes, I know that it looks like I'm about to cut into my cord there on my saw, but there's actually a guard on the front of my saw that prevents that from happening, and I should have brought it to the back to begin with, but I completely spaced on it. Yeah, don't do that, because you will wind up cutting through it, and it's not fun when you do. Since I'm breaking all these down at the same time, it can get confusing as to what pieces for what part or parts. So I'm just taking some blue tape and I'm just marking it. So on my plans, I've got part A, part B, part C. So I'm just taking the blue tape and I'm marking on it that this piece is for parts A, B, and so forth and so on. So as I said, once I get them cut to rough size, then I'll bring them over to the table saw and get them cut to their final dimension. And that way I can batch all this out and hopefully make assembly go a little bit faster. Okay, so here's the most critical part of this. Because I'm using the domino connectors, I need to mark in the exact same spot where I want the center mortise to go. The 2 outside mortises is fairly easy because I can just use the registration points or tabs on the domino itself. So I've marked the center and I've marked which end is the front. Okay, so now it's time to start drilling the mortises. So like I said, I'll use the registration tabs. And for the vertical dividers, I will be putting it into the end like this. So I'm going to line up the left tab with the left side, with the front, basically. And then I'm going to move it to the center and line up the center of the domino with the center mark that I made. and drill that one, and then I'll line the right tab up with the right side or the back and drill that mortise. Now, one thing to note when doing this is the domino is set for the tightest tolerance on all three of these. Normally, when you're putting dominoes into something like this, you would set the first one for the tight tolerance, and then the preceding ones after that, you would set it for a little bit looser tolerance. But all three of these need to be drilled with the tightest tolerance on the machine. Okay, so this is why I ordered the kit, because it comes with this piece as well. This is the drill adapter or drill guide to be able to drill the holes for the set screws to go into, to be able to put the connectors in and connect it. This is what makes it a quick connect, basically, or knockdown, whatever you want to refer to it as. And it comes with this as well as the drill bit, and the drill bit has a stop on it where you get the perfect depth every single time. So basically what you do with this is you clamp your piece down, then you clamp the jig in place, the guide, whatever you want to call it again, and you just drill the hole, and when you hit the stop, you stop and back out. This is specifically designed to have dust collection and to be able to set it to multiple thicknesses of lumber. Typically these particular connectors you would only use with 3/4 inch lumber, but I have seen people use them with thicker and maybe a little bit less, but I wouldn't go much less than 3/4, honestly. The easiest way I found to drill the mortises in the horizontal dividers is to use the vertical dividers, and once you have them pretty much complete, and you can line them up and use them as spacers to make sure you got everything spaced just right. And you can even use the center line that's on the vertical dividers to line up the domino with the horizontal dividers, and that way you get the center mortise exactly in the same spot on both pieces. For a lot of these I have to make complete through mortises, so that means I have to go all the way through the divider. So I've got a piece of scrap underneath that I'm actually cutting into at the same time that I'm cutting these, just to keep it from tearing out on the other side. So my design actually calls for the sides to protrude above and below the top and the bottom a little bit, and in order to get the dominoes placed in the right spot, I couldn't exactly put an entire piece there. So I used some CA glue and blue tape and just taped a piece of scrap to be able to get everything lined up, and that's how I cut the ones for the bottoms on both sides. And now I'm going to do a quick dry fit just to make sure everything is fitting the way I want it to, and any kind of adjustments I'm going to need to make, I can figure them out now, and it won't affect me quite as bad going on down the line. Okay, so this thing is so heavy and so big, and she wanted to be mobile, plus I'm wanting to try and flat pack it and ship it, so I needed to put wheels on it, but I needed a way to put the wheels on to where they would be easy to install for a customer or for anybody for that matter. So in order to give it a little bit more strength and stability, I glued on an extra block where I want the wheels to go, and then I marked on that block where I needed the holes to go for the bolts. Once I have the holes drilled, then I will metal threaded inserts to be able to put the bolts into. And you can use CA glue to help hold these in, but I found it not really necessary. When you screw them in, they're actually very tight, and it would be almost impossible for them to work themselves out. And it could happen, but I kind of doubt it, because they are extremely tight and they're extremely sturdy. And once I have them in, then I just have to line up the wheels and put the bolts in. After that, I'm going to do another dry assembly, and I've got my 1/2 inch plywood pieces that I'm going to use for the back, and I'm going to get them lined up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up one corner, then I'm going to put a brad nail into it to hold it in place temporarily, and then I'll line up the other corner, and I'll do the same thing over there, And then after that, once I have everything lined up, and I'll draw lines on the top piece so that I can make sure I know where everything's at when I go to drive screws into the bottom piece. I gotta make sure the screws are going in the right place, and then I'll drive screws into it and to hold them on there permanently. And then I'm gonna do one more trick that I think will help make sure everything lines up. It wound up not working out as well as I would hope it would, but it's a work in progress. Okay, so what my thought process was I could drill a hole through the back and into the side pieces, and then put a dowel in there to make sure everything lined up when I took it apart and then went to go put it back together. The problem with that is I forgot to mark which piece was which, and I put the holes in very similar spots, so it didn't really help the way I wanted it to. So in the future, if I go to do this, I will mark which piece is top, which piece is bottom, and that should help line it up a little bit better and easier. So the next step is obviously to take it apart. Now that I've gotten it fully together, I have to take it apart so that we can stain all the pieces. And this is part of the beauty of using these connectors, is I can put it together and take it apart as often as I need to, and it all just goes right back together, the exact same spot, no glue. I don't have to worry about any of that. And it just made the whole process a lot easier. Plus, we have to get it upstairs, so this was another benefit to making it knockdown, so that we could take it apart and get it upstairs easier and get it in place. And yeah. So one more thing before we stain it, to make it look a little bit nicer, I'm going to go ahead and edge band the parts that are going to be exposed, and we'll just stain the edge banding at the same time we stain everything else. That way everything will blend exactly how it needs to be. And now we can start staining. So we use 2 coats of True Black, that's the color she picked for it, and Minwax True Black, oil-based penetrating stain, and put on 2 coats of it. And after each coat, we wiped it on, and then we wiped the excess off. And as you can see, it goes on pretty thick, but it does penetrate through, and yeah, it looks really good once it's all done. Just be really careful because it will get everywhere. Cat's gonna kill me. But anyway, once we let the stain dry for a couple of days, I then put 4 coats of lacquer on it. I wound up putting 4 on it, just to give it a little bit of extra protection. And once I put the last coat on, I then sanded it all down with 1500 grit just to get all the little nibs out. And then I went over it again with paste wax because she wanted her fabric to be able to just slide across this. And yeah, it makes for a really slick surface, and her fabric goes in and out of the cubbies very easily with that setup. And once all that's done, then we move it upstairs and start assembling it. Okay, yeah, so that's it. That's all there is to it. The only advice I can give you if you try to do this on your own is double check all your measurements, make sure everything's right, and make sure you line everything up just the right way, and you get it wrapped around your head which way the connectors go before you start drilling the mortises. Otherwise, you can flip it around and have it going the wrong way and all that neat stuff. And another thing, let the stain dry a little longer than we did. Some parts stuck together just a little bit, and I had to do a little bit of touch up, but it wasn't that big a deal. It all came out looking fine in the end. But just save yourself a little bit of headache if you're going to do that. So that's it. So yeah, until next time, guys, happy creating.